Right, now if you're doing portrait photography, whether it's under normal light conditions or it is within the golden hour, having a reflector as part of your photography kit is a definite must. And the reason for that is that you can control more light. And if we keep in mind what the whole idea of photography is to capture, manipulate this light and basically make the light do what we want it to do or what we need it to do, so that we can create the right effect that we actually after. So having a reflector is definitely important, especially now within the golden hour, because it's going to allow you to capture more of that light and just bounce some of that beautiful full light back on your subject. So that's what we're going to be considering now, is how we can use these reflectors. And the nice thing about reflectors, you can actually even use them when your weather is somewhat overcast. So even when your light is a little bit low, you can still use reflectors. Now, you get these reflector kits that come in packs of 5, but now within that reflector kit, basically these 3 reflectors that actually do reflect light, and that's your gold, your silver, and then your white reflector, which is a bit more softer. But now for this lesson that we are considering now, we're going to basically be looking at just 2 of the reflectors. We're going to look at the golden one and then also the silver one. Now the decision will be yours which one you're going to use, because it's going to basically depend on what your intensity of your light is at that particular moment, especially if you're shooting either in early morning golden hour or if you're shooting late afternoon golden hour. So the choice is going to be yours. Now if we think of the golden reflector, now the golden reflector is really a beautiful reflector to use within the golden hour, for the simple fact that it captures and also amplifies the golden hue of the sun, which is really stunning. And this can really be used in a very effective way, especially if your subject has pretty fair skin. Then you'll be able to just put a bit of this warmer light onto your subject, and it can also enrichen the skin tones. Or the silver reflector. Now the silver reflector in this case also reflects, in my own personal opinion from past experience, it reflects much more light. Your silver reflector also, the color tone is a bit more cooler, but it also reflects a high contrast light quality, which means basically that your light is stronger and it's going to reflect much further, which can really actually be used, especially when your light in golden hour is so low. But now a tip to keep in mind, here's a tip, is that when using the silver reflector, be careful that you don't stand too close to your subject, because that light is a little bit more intense. It can actually, if you shine it directly into your subject's or your model's face, temporarily, for an instant, you can actually blind them. And the negative thing about doing that is the fact that you can actually, in a second, you can lose that facial expression. In that split second that you're just about to depress your exposure button, the whole mood that you have worked so hard to capture or to create can be lost just like that in an instant. So it's very important to remember, when using a silver reflector, just back off a little bit more further, and just a bit more at a subtle angle. And that will still allow you to use it as a beautiful full light on your subject in this case. But now if we think of the angles of reflectors, how we hold them, is it important, when we think of what angle we hold them, is it important that we consider the height and the angle of our reflector? Well, it definitely is. It really is important, because if we think of our actual natural light source as the sun, and this natural light source, well, it's shining above us. It doesn't come from below. It's not positioned there. It's positioned on top, above us. And even if we are shooting with low angle light in the golden hour, that sun, our main light source, technically speaking, is still actually above us. Now, you might be wondering why is it so important that we're considering this? Well, what is the point? Well, the point is, if we think of what the sun actually does, that main light source, as it moves up through the sky and it moves, first of all, yes, it's casting light rays onto an object, or in this case, our subject. But when the light rays hit the object, it lights it up, it bounces light off. But now it's also doing something else, and this is also important to keep in mind. It's actually casting shadows. It's creating shadows on the particular object that it is shining onto. So why is that so important? Well, as it moves, the shadows on the object also move. Now, these shadows basically allow us to identify the object shape, which is very important. It helps us to identify also different characteristics of the shape. It also helps us to identify textures of the shape or of the object. So this is very important to keep in mind, because if we hold in our reflector in the wrong way or at the wrong angle, what could actually happen is that we can be creating unflattering shadows on our subject. So the thing about that is, if these shadows in the wrong places, it's going to create an effect that is not going to be true to our subject. As a matter of fact, if you capture these shadows in the wrong place, you could actually be creating what they call a zombie effect. So that means that we could end up with shadows, dark shadows under the eyes. It could be dark shadows above the nose. It could be even on the cleft of the chin. So it's basically against the natural lay of the shadows, where the shadows should actually be, considering our light sources from above. So that's something that we want to keep in mind when we hold our reflectors, and why we actually hold reflectors like this. So you got basically three main points you want to keep in mind: is your angle, in other words, your height, your distance, that's also very important, and the angle at which you actually move your reflector. This is going to determine what effect you, as a photographer, are going to capture at that particular moment. So let us consider a few reflector setups that we can actually use, just fundamental setups that will basically allow us a broader margin to build on with ideas and to become more creative. Now, our first one is by just using one reflector. Now, we keep in mind that we're still using the sun as our main light source. In this case, what we're going to do is we're going to have our subject now placed between us and the sun. Now, they could be looking directly at us, at the camera, or they could be slightly at a bit of an angle, but still we'll be taking the picture towards them. Using one reflector here, we're going to now use the sun as a rim light, but also as a main light at the same time. So if we take that one reflector and we now hold it at a bit of an angle, remember, a little bit above, and we just move the angle, and the distance is right, and then we're going to be able to create some beautiful soft full light, which, if done correctly, is going to allow you to create some great dynamic light on your subject. That's the first one. Then our second one is using two reflectors. Now, what we're going to do here, we're going to use the sun as a rim light. Now, if we place one reflector close to our model or our subject, we're going to now use this main reflector as a key light. This one is closer now to our model. Then we're going to use a second reflector in this case, but on the other side of the subject, and we're going to take it back just a little bit further, and we're going to use this as a full light. Now, the whole idea of the main light, the key light, that main reflector that's close to our model, this is going to be basically the one that's going to highlight the form and the dimension of the subject. The second reflector that's been placed on the other side, that's taken a little bit further back, this one is going to be our full light, in the sense that it's going to have a much more softer light intensity that it reflects back onto our subject. So there you have it, the one is a key light and the one is a full light. Now what we can do, you can also, as a third step, you can actually even bring in a third reflector. If you take it and you tilt it down, you can use that reflector also to basically create a bit of a more distinct hair light, or you can actually use it as a catch light. Now obviously, if you have an assistant to help you with this, these experiments, it's going to be much easier for you. So you can also keep in mind, you can recruit somebody that can give you a hand in holding these reflectors. So if we take now these techniques, then, and we work with these techniques, it's going to basically allow us the opportunity to experiment, to learn how to actually manipulate this light. And remember, we want to make the light do what we want it to do, to shine in places that we want it to shine. So spend a bit of time on this and really experiment with it and have fun, but make it work for you. Now, if you don't have a reflector kit, now I remember when I started out photography some time back, I spent all my money and I bought my camera and then I was broke. I had no money to buy any reflector kits or anything like that. If this is your case and you're working on a low budget, or you just don't have a reflector kit on you, the good news is you can make one. Now, a little while ago, I made this reflector. This was my first reflector. And quite frankly, I even use this reflector right up until today. And it works very well with me. It's a hard one, as you can see, but it works just great. So if you want to, and you cannot afford a reflector kit, you can, just by using the normal materials that are around your household, or even lying around the garage, you'd be surprised what a beautiful reflector you can actually put together. So if this is your case and you're interested in doing that, leave me a comment below, and I can get back to you, and I can give you some headers if you want to, and how you can create and fabricate your own reflector. Okay, now if we think of the low light that we are shooting in, there might come a time where a flash is going to be needed. You might just want just that extra bit more light on your subject. If this is the case, this is where I introduce this little baby here. Many of us already know this light. This is an external flash, or as commonly known, a speed light. Now, I would recommend this if you need a flash to go with something like this. The reason we go with the flash, the external flash or the speed light, is pretty simple, because you've got your controls in the back, and these controls will basically help you to set the actual intensity of the flash, the light itself, or even the pulse of the light can also all be controlled in the back of the flash. The other awesome thing about it is that it can rotate, okay? It can rotate. And that gives you that leeway on how and where you want to bounce that light. Now, keeping in mind that flashes can put out quite a bit of light. And if you don't set it right, you can actually maybe even wash out some of the colors on your subject, or even overexpose them. Remember, we want to set it to the intensity that it actually complements the soft, low, even light that we are working with in golden hour. So if you're a bit nervous of the intensity of the light, here's a tip that you can also work with. You can actually take a reflector, set up a reflector to the angle of your subject, and you can aim and bounce this light onto the reflector, and it can actually be bounced back onto your subject from the side or from a nice subtle angle, it will still allow you to retain that beautiful soft angular light, that golden hue, and that you will not overexpose the color on your subject skin tone. So with that being said now, with all these techniques that we now basically looked at in this section on reflectors, what are we going to do with all of these elements and these techniques that we learned? Well, we need to now be able to take these elements and take all these ideas and make them work for us in just the right setting. So that's what we're going to now have a look at now in our next lesson, how to use this in the right setting, in the right environment. That lesson, composition. I'll see you there.